Here we go. And we are live. Welcome to live, everyone. Just thought I've talked about this before about our reliance on technology, and we're seeing this sort of huge uptake now in the use of AI, and I've noticed a lot of content recently. AI gurus are they're on podcasts everywhere, aren't they? Talking about the amount of jobs that are going to get replaced by AI and all the rest of it. And what always strikes me as being sort of a funny point that they always point out, these AI gurus, is when they're asked what do people do, they all turn around and say, "Oh, train to be a plumber." And it's not a bad shout actually, because if you speak to a plumber, I helped Nick, who's obviously come into the Goal Achievement Hub business recently with us more permanently. I helped Nick. I did let's call it a condition survey on a new house that she's buying recently. So I helped her out, saved her paying fortunes to a surveyor. I went and had a look at a condition survey on this new property. Because I still have those skills, you see. I used to be in construction and architecture and, designed a lot of buildings, understand how they're technically put together, manually. So I have these skills, right? So I can just look at a physical house and see whether it's, not just falling down, everything, right? And I spoke to the plumber there. She got like a gas plumber, gas heating engineer to come out and have a look at the heating system. And I had a chat to him about this AI thing. And I said, you'll be all right, won't you, going forwards, being a plumber? And he actually said, I've never been out of work. You have to turn work down. How many people can't find a job? Plumber can, right? And I went having my haircut this morning, spoke to Barbara, and he said the same thing. I said, we were just having a bit of a chat about it with AI. I said, your job will not go, will it? And he said, well, it might. We had a bit of a chat. He said, well, no, I don't. It's not top of the food chain, is it, for things like that? And I thought about it. Someone who cuts your hair, like, yeah, they could probably produce a robot, right, that can do it. They literally could. But I think we've missed the human element, though. We miss the human element. So today's kind of title about too much tech. We are massively reliant on tech, even our phones. This thing's going now. I'm just using my mobile, but amazing pieces of technology. We use them from everything, but it reminds me of, like, was it Elon Musk's Neuralink thing, where the idea is that we've become so reliant on our mobile smartphone now that anything we want to know, we just ask a question and it's given us all that information just like that, whether it's like, how do I get to this place, maps, follow a map. And I remember a time before mobile phones and we had to flipping think on our feet. And yeah, the advancement of technology, mobile phones give us all this sort of massive amount of computing power right in front of us, and it's connected to the internet that's got all sorts of AI behind it. We've got Chat GPT on the mobile now. So we've got this massive amount of computing power, right, which are in data centers and stuff like that. It's amazing. Before we had that, flipping out, you had to, if you ever wanted to go anywhere, you had to, study a map, do a route plan, memorize it. I remember, driving around in a car, you literally had to know the roads. Now you just on sat nav, or even plonk your phone there. You had to, if you wanted to go to, like, from Manchester to London, you had to look up when the train time was, figure out the tube when you got there, all these things, right? And it got me thinking, because I had a chat to a friend of mine that's in tech like me. So I'm in tech, I'm in technology, software. I had a chat to a friend of mine that's in tech, and he's done some work for me. He's from Mauritius. And Mahen, shout out to Mahen, my friend. He used to be a neighbour, you see, so we knew each other there. And I caught up with him, and he said he was actually, he's moving back to Mauritius. And I said, why? He said he just wants to get the fuck out of technology. And he wants to go back to nature, live in nature and be more in touch with nature. And he sort of mentioned that humanity's kind of lost all these skills, these skills that humans used to be good at. He went on to talk about things like the pyramids and all these like massive structures. You look at the pyramids, how did they move? How did they build the pyramids, without basically no technology, and these massive obelisks out of one piece of marble and stand them up, you didn't have cranes or anything. And then you look at sort of Mayan cultures, which are same, and all these things that are happening, thousands and thousands of years ago without technology. And you look at us now and you think we couldn't do that because we have lost a lot of these manual skills. And it kind of reminds me of, oh, thank you very much. Get a job, yeah, of course, right? So, but well, that's the answer, isn't it? We need to get jobs rather than just fucking around on our mobiles. You are right. But anyway, it got me, I said, what about like, these like the Eskimos, or is it Inuits? I don't know what the flipping correct term is, but these people, one thing they've got these like brilliant navigation skills, like naturally, and they use like waypointing or wayfinding and maybe the stars and things, but they learn this right from an early age, how to navigate the ice when it just looks like flat ice for like hundreds of thousands of miles. And they have to learn that as a skill. And then I saw a documentary where the new generations are now reliant on a GPS, and they're saying, like the old school, if that GPS goes, say, flat, the battery goes, they're screwed. They can, get stranded or die out there on the ice when they need it for, it's a way of life. So those skills, and I've just wrote a few things down here. Talked about the AI gurus, right? Wherever you ever see these AI gurus, like I say, when you hear them on podcasts, and they ask what the solution is, and they tell people to go and retrain as a plumber, and it isn't a bad shout, but there's the sat navs, there's the phones, we're so reliant on it, and then the other things like ebook readers and audio books, it's just fucking lazy. Like, I read books, physical books, write notes in them, write these notes. Obviously, everything I do, the journal, I prefer a handwritten. I used to use a digital journal. I prefer a handwritten journal. And I'll tell you something now, right? Writing things down with a flipping pen and paper, like whether it's a notebook or a journal, makes you smarter. I'll tell you why. Because even though technology is great, there's nothing that commits it to memory better. The tactile nature of writing on paper. I memorize it. When I used to do everything digitally, I'd just fucking type in it and you just forget, but the fact that you write it all down is like, it makes you smarter. And there's so many things now that technology is replacing, whether it's sat nav in the car, technology on your phone, absolutely everything. Even like, because I remember a time before these smartphones existed, the skills that I had to learn when I was younger. So I had to fix my own car, right? Literally. And this is before, like now, the cars are full of technology, aren't they? They're more electric than they are mechanical. But I remember a day when, I used to have these cars, like absolute fucking bangers when I was a student. I had to fix them. I remember once, didn't put any antifreeze in the radiator, just water, because you could do that in the summer. And it froze up in the winter. And I was like, shit, I didn't have any money. So I had to go down the scrapyard, get a new radiator because it cracked the radiator. Look at it, not damage the head, but it cracked all the pipes in the radiator. So I had to go and scavenge a few parts from the scrapyard. And they used to let you go around in them days and take the bits off cars. Now it's health and safety, you wouldn't be able to do it. But took all the bits, brought it home, and literally, like, took all the bits off the car, had to defrost them all, and then in the fucking snow, it was freezing, had to work out how to replace parts of this car, even like part of the engine, the inlet manifolds for all the water, had to pull off, and they were all cracked. replace them. The main engine block were fine. But basically, I've never done anything like, just had to work it out, you know. And then, like building houses, you just have to work it out how to bricklay. And if you think now we do nothing, right? Everything's super reliant on things like ChatGPT and all these AI, you know. Like one thing that really aggravates me is, you know, these, have you ever noticed now the amount of channels on YouTube that are AI driven, and what they'll do, they'll like get a voice, they'll go into ChatGPT, create a flipping script, or there's even software that does this, and then they'll feed that script into like a voiceover software that mimics some famous person. You got people like spewing out channels with like Jordan Peterson or Alan Watts or just fucking tons of it, and it's all AI, and you can tell when you listen to it after a few, just like the cadence of it is not a natural way to speak, and it might sound like the person, but that really annoys me. So the minute I see it's AI, I just click off me. I'm not interested. And something I've always been quite proud of myself is I want to create real organic content. Even on like my website, I've got a little disclaimer on there saying everything on here, every picture I've taken myself with my phone or, you know, with my mobile. They're all my photos. They're not, nothing's AI generated. And that's what I like. I don't like these faceless channels or anything like this. I'm just not a fan of it. Now I do use ChatGPT, right, because it's useful for doing certain things. There is a time for it because it basically gives you, it's like having an army of people to, if you use it correctly, it can do a lot of the donkey work, right? So it's great at gathering data. So I've created private GPT, say, to help me with my tech business because it knows everything about my tech business. I've trained it on it. And if I'm answering like a technical question, or if I'm answering like, say, bidding for a new project, I can feed in the requirements and it can give me a steer of where to look based on everything about our software. And so it does a lot of that, you know, like basically I've answered that many tenders that I've got like these loads and loads of spreadsheets full of answers, and it'll just go and find me the appropriate one. But it's finding me an answer that I've already written. What the wrong way to use ChatGPT is to feed in like a one-liner prompt and expect it to come up with like a rabbit out of a hat, generate content from nothing. I always think that you should feed in content, even if it's a draft, and help it, ask it to help you refine it. You know, like maybe dot I's, cross T's, a bit of grammar, that kind of thing. But it's grammar shite as well. There's loads of telltale signs with it as well. So yeah, I do think there's a time and a place for it, but the idea that, because one of the problems is with AI, yes, it's getting better, but it will get to the point, you know, like, have you ever seen these stats where they say that there's more information in the last 24 hours than there is in, I don't know, the last 100 years out on the internet? Well, if that's the case, then every day, you know, it's just this like, it's like a fucking Mandelbrot equation. It's just getting massive and massive, the amount of data. And with that in mind, if all the new information is produced by ChatGPT, or let's say 90% of the shite on the internet is produced by ChatGPT, then what is the future? Is ChatGPT now training itself on ChatGPT and it's just regurgitating the same old fucking shite? There's no new ideas coming in, right? So that's why I like organic content. Yeah, it might not be as polished, you know what I mean? You like me, and I'm not polished in any way, but I'm real, you know. And that's why I like, you know, I created my journal. Like I wrote the damn thing, I created it, and it's, if you listen to my channel, everything in there, the systems in there, are what I talk about on my channel because that's what's worked for me. So I've always had this thing where I thought, yeah, I'm in tech, I create software, workflow automation, all this stuff, right, for engineering. That's what my software is. But in my personal life, I prefer to get closer to nature. I love going out on a hike or on my mountain bike where I'm away from technology. And I always think that you should try and keep some natural skills. Like I went on a bushcraft course, and this is like, you know, where you go into the flipping woods, you just have a knife, like a bushcraft knife, which is, have you ever seen them? It looks like a knife, but it's got like a thicker blade with a fatter end, because you can use it with a hammer, well, the mallet, to split wood, you know, create kindling and all that kind of thing. So it ends up with like quite a fat blade, which you can bash on the back of. So it's called a bushcraft knife, and a flint and steel. And you go into the woods, and you've literally got to survive. So you have to create yourself a shelter. You have to start a fire. You have to, like, you know, we found like bulrushes, which you tap and get this flour out of, and then make bread, or whatever you're going to do. You know, you got to survive. So I like skills like that. You know, if I'm not, you know, but if we came into this kind of apocalyptic nature, you want to be fucking useful, right? How many people today have no skills? You know, they don't have any construction skills. They don't have any DIY skills. Like, what happens if your house starts falling? Like me, I can, you know, I did all underfloor heating. I can plumb. I can fit, fucking boil, everything, right? Because I've bothered to keep myself sharp in them areas. You know, no one wants to fix anything. Car now goes wrong, straight into garage. Yeah, life's easy. There's a lot of technology. But realistically, do you want to be super reliant on that? I like doing manual things. I like reading books manually, not on an audio book. You know, properly reading books and doing manual things, manual work, all that kind of thing. Don't like shortcuts. So yeah, that's all I've got to say. Don't rely on ChatGPT too much, otherwise you look like the rest of them. Just be a carbon copy. Try going out in your car without switching the sat nav on. Try to get somewhere just by your own sense of direction. How about that? Because the less, I do think that the more reliant on technology you become, yes, you can do more, but you become dumber. You need to become smarter by doing things yourself with your own bare hands, brain, skills. All right. Anyway, yeah, a couple of questions. What are you talking about? Well, just have a listen. Just listen to it back. You'll figure it out. Where am I from? The UK, Manchester. All right. Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a nice day. Go and have a listen to a few of my other videos on, you know, good habits, skills, keep yourself sharp. And yeah, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and see you all next time.